About 6 or 7 years ago, I was doing retail management and it was wrecking my life. I quit. Then I decided I wasn't going to work just a conventional 9-to-5 job again. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work for somebody else. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure it out. So I emailed every single taxidermist in the state of Utah, kind of being like, hey, this is who I am. I have zero experience, but I would really love to come and work at your shop. I'll work for free. I want to get involved whatever way I can. And then my mentor, who wound up giving me my apprenticeship, emailed me back. He said he was going to be closing his shop in 2 months, but he needed someone in there for that time, and he'll teach me enough that I could get hired on with another taxidermist. 2 months he didn't shut down, then 6 months later he didn't shut down. It took a couple of years before he actually finally ended it. By the time it was done, I wound up getting a full apprenticeship out of it. I guess when I first started, I really thought it was just going to be like a hobby. I thought it was much more technical, I guess, than it actually is. I thought it was just going to be like, you do this one thing and then this other thing happens and that's it. But the reality is it was much more artful than I ever really imagined, and you're sculpting up all of everything that's underneath the skin. You have to sculpt those muscular structures, and then you're also doing painting, and so it was much more artistically involved than I had imagined. And I just fell in love with it from there. I do traditional, which is your game animals, but I also do pets as well. Any big cat that you can think of, we've done bears. I've had any type of dog, mostly the small dogs. We do cats, iguanas, birds, chickens. If you can think of a continent, I've had many animals from there come through the shop, which is pretty cool. When you're working with animals, you're working with organics, and so they're never going to be the exact same. Every single animal is going to have something that's different, even if they're the same dimensions. You're going to run into that. So I feel like taxidermy is like 60% skill, and then 40% just figuring out how to fix this catastrophe that's just fallen onto your table. I believe that everyone thinks that I am sitting here with a giant bale of clay and straw and magically just stuffing it inside of an animal skin and making an animal. I really think, and that sounds ridiculous, but I really do feel like people just have no idea of how much, for any animal, I'm probably putting minimum 15 hours work into it. When the hunter brings it in, essentially what he's bringing in is a head with all of the excess skin still attached to it. And we go through, we finish skinning out the face, and then we send it to the tannery after we salt it and dry it. Comes back from the tannery, and we do some work on the cape itself, but then what you're doing is you're taking it, and essentially it's the easiest way to describe it is like a styrofoam mannequin that we're then, like I said earlier, just building up on top of, carving down, cutting up, putting back together, and that's what's inside of the cape. And then you've got the actual antlers and the real skin, and then everything else is artificial. I really sincerely enjoy recreating that and bringing it back and taking my time so that I've done justice to that animal. It leads to long nights. I try to only work 8 hours a day, but most times I'm working at least a 15-hour day at least once a week. There's no consistency in taxidermy, and I think that's one of the things that makes it such a small field. There's such a small number of taxidermists. I've cleared 2 months without getting an entire animal or any animals in. But then I've also had a week where I've got 15 in, and it's just how it goes. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all on me. Whether I eat is on me. A lot of people have the luxury of having a job that they go to, and they might hate their job, but they have a dependable paycheck. Being a taxidermist, there's a lot of preconceived notions of what I should be, and the biggest issue that I run into is people questioning whether or not I am actually the taxidermist and the owner here. I've got a lot of people who will ask me if it's my husband's shop, and when I'm on the phone with people, they'll ask when my guy will be in. In those instances, I tend to say, I talk in the third person, so I'll say, yeah, we will go ahead and work on it, et cetera, and then when they get actually into the shop, that's when they realize that I'm the one working on their animal and not some, 65-year-old guy. You have to not get overly defensive. There's actually been this insurgence of like women being more involved with taxidermy. Really young women too, not just, like older. You've got these young girls starting at like 12. I've had 12-year-olds who will start messaging me and asking me about it. And I feel that in the next 10 years, I sincerely believe that we will be very even-keeled with how many male taxidermists versus female, because we kind of got tired of being told we couldn't play around with blood and guts, and we decided we could. So that's something that's been interesting to watch. I'll get a lot of people who will believe that because I work with dead animals, I hate animals, and that I'm just this bloodthirsty monster that just wants to see all animals die just for the sake of me going and being able to bring them back to life. I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I believe you can't recreate something and bring that life back into it unless you really appreciate the life that was there, that animal in its existence, and also have great knowledge about that animal. Know how it moves so you can recreate those poses, understand like its habitat. You have to know a lot about animals to work on them. When people come in and they pick it up and they're actually excited and it turned out exactly how they wanted, that's one of the best feelings, because you kind of have this anxiety that can happen beforehand. Well, panic, did they remember that they wanted this pose? Did I give them the right pose? And so when they walk in and they're stoked about it and they like take a picture and send to their friends before it's even home, that's one of the best feelings. I've had so many pet owners come in and pick up their pet when it's done, and they'll start crying. And it's hard, I'll start crying because you know that you've done well when they're just so happy to have their pet back, and it's making them emotional. You know that you've done your job.